The President. We'll continue with the debate on the motion under the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Mr. Allen Leung. Thank you, President. Yesterday, it was said that the firing of Li Wei-ling was but an employment matter in a commercial organization, and so it was not necessary to invoke upon the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance to carry out an investigation. Now let's look at the objective facts. Every 10 years, commercial radio removes or fires very popular radio program hosts. In 2004, Albert Chang and Yuk-man were forced to be off mic, and then Li Wei-ling was transferred from a morning program to an evening program, and then subsequently she was fired. So, what coincidences? And in fact, in 2004 as well as in 2014, commercial radio has to have its license renewed. So is it just a personnel issue or matter in a company? And in fact, 10 years ago, when Albert Chang and Yuk-man had to be off mic. Now, I want to say that, in fact, also in November 2011, Chiu-hung was removed from an RTH program. And then in March 2012, we had the CE election. And in March, there was a televised debate among the three CE candidates. And Henry Tang said openly that Wai-leung said in EXCO that the renewal of the commercial radio's license would be used as a means to try to make sure that commercial radio would be acting in an appropriate manner. And then in November 2012, Albert Chang had to leave DBC, and then it was said that Wong Cho-pao said that the Western District didn't like Li Wei-ling. And then there was the document number 9 from the central authorities. And then in June 2013, Chen Ping was assaulted when he left his office, and in the same month, there was criminal intimidation right outside Lai Chih-ying's house, and there was an axe put there. And then in June or July 2013, there was a fire at the Apple Daily office. And then in July, Mr. Xu Cheng, the boss of AM 730, had the window of his car crashed. And then there was in fact in January this year, Xu Cheng said that advertisements were taken away from AM 730. And then in the same month, the chief editor of Ming Pao was replaced. And Li Wei-ling was fired or dismissed in February 2014. And at the press conference, Ms. Li Wei-ling said that someone near C.Y. Leung told her to be careful about her job. And then in the same month, Mr. Kevin Lau was chopped. So, should we attribute all these to the commercial operations of a business organization or business organizations? I think we should look at whether political pressure has been brought to bear on commercial radio, and as a result, commercial radio has done all these things in order to have the license renewed. So I briefly went through the major incidents that occurred in the past decade in relation to the media. So are we saying that all these are just personnel matters in commercial organizations and there is no need for an investigation? If we think so, are we trying to deceive ourselves? On the 22nd of January this year, I moved a motion debate on safeguarding editorial independence and autonomy. And the motion was carried. And the wording reads that this council is concerned that a veteran and influential journalist has been transferred, and as a result, society is concerned about the impact on the freedom of the press and editorial autonomy, blah, blah, blah. So a motion was passed by the council, and the content of the motion included the reference to the transfer of or the post-transfer of Li Wei-ling, and of course subsequently she was fired, and then Mr. Kevin Lau was chopped. And concerning the Hong Kong Morning News, the two senior staff members working for the newspaper, they were assaulted in broad daylight. So is it that we should all the more invoke upon the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance to try to find out whether there are invisible hands trying to smother press freedom and editorial autonomy in Hong Kong? If we refuse to do this, then we are not really fulfilling the duties that the public have given to us. And President, we want to look at whether there is political interference. We want to know whether commercial radio has been forced to succumb to political pressure. And I think this is closely related to the issues of judicial independence and the rule of law. Of course, I can't be as eloquent as the judges. And I can remember that in 2012, at the dinner gathering of the 44th anniversary of the HKJA, Mr. Judge Bokri was the guest at the reception, and he said that the fourth estate and the judiciary represented a symbiosis. In fact, he spoke in English. The judiciary needs to protect the media, and the media protect the judiciary. And that was what he said in English.
The judiciary and the fourth estate was a symbiosis. The judiciary protects the media and vice versa. 引述完畢。咁不約而同呢？
And the former Chief Justice of the CFA, Mr. Judge Andrew Lee, also said something at an activity at Hong Kong U. He said that if we have the rule of law, then press freedom, freedom of speech, and other core values can be protected. And these can be protected. These core values can be protected only if we have the rule of law. And he said that Mr. Kevin Lau's case made Hong Kong people extremely worried about their freedom of speech, and so everyone should be vigilant in order to safeguard his or her freedoms. And Mr. Wang Yanlong also said at the congregation of the University of Hong Kong a couple of days ago, he said, he was present at that occasion, and he said that Hong Kong people should have the courage to uphold the freedom of speech and the freedom of the media. So we want to make use of the powers under the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance to make sure that freedom of the press and editorial independence can be maintained. And what is more, we are also trying to protect and uphold judicial independence and the spirit of the rule of law. As Mr. Judge Bokri has pointed out, this is a symbiotic relationship which is very, very important. The judiciary is the ultimate gatekeeper for Hong Kong's core values. But in order that the judiciary can continue to uphold Hong Kong's core values and inherent institutions and systems, we must not make the judiciary a lone voice without any support from anyone. And so when press freedom and editorial independence are challenged and threatened, when our core values are under threat, we must have the courage to stand firm and protect these values. And that's why Ms. Claudia Mo is moving this motion to appoint a select committee to look into Li Wei-ling's dismissal. And I think it's just timely and appropriate to move such a motion at this point in time. And may I remind members that on the 22nd of January this year, the Council passed a non-legally binding motion. At that time, Li Wei-ling had not been fired yet. She had been transferred to another post, and the Council expressed concern. And if we do not agree today that we should make use of the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance, then it seems that members on the 22nd of January only paid lip service to this to the call for support and concern for the incident. Now, I hope the members will support this motion. With a thorough investigation, we can find out whether commercial radio has bowed to political pressure. And I think this is the crux, this is the core of the proposed investigation. Why is it that every time commercial radio's license is up for renewal, it will have to dismiss its very popular radio program hosts? So what sort of pressure does commercial radio face, since such decisions are not logical from a commercial point of view? So we want to know the truth. Thank you.
Mr. To. Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, whether or not there is to be a renewal, whether or not a broadcaster will continue to have a license to continue with his broadcasting business is very essential to the broadcaster. No wonder every 10 years we had such incidents. The last incident took place in 2004, and this time is 2014. In 2004, the program hosts were transferred, and then the license was renewed. And then the broadcaster's comments could be more critical. Of course, it was said that C.Y. Leung said that the license of commercial radio should only be renewed for 3 years. That is not to give commercial radio a room for maneuvering of 10 years. Well, we can have more detailed records to provide more press information as well as government policies. However, for a broadcaster, that is the case, but for newspapers, readers cannot call in, phone in, and then there's somebody to write down the comments. So, radio programs are very important. Phone-in programs are able to bring in public opinion. Whether or not program hosts are popular depends on whether or not the hosts are reasonable and rational and persuasive enough in their language. For the celebrities, officials, etc., their previous remarks can be collated and compiled into a series. And then whether or not these people have been self-contradictory cannot escape the eyes of the audience or the ears of the audience. Ms. Li Wei-ling has been doing that. Therefore, those people who have been disclosed by her to be self-contradictory in their remarks might hate her very much. Such compilation of previous remarks of celebrities and officials have allowed members of the public who are so busy to grasp what they had said. However, such a broadcaster has been suppressed, and now we have fewer and fewer media doing the same. The dismissal of Li Wei-ling has been conducted rather violently. On that very day, she was still discharging her duties by going here and there to collect information. However, she was told that she was immediately dismissed, and she was not even allowed to pack up her own belongings. Well, such practices are usually seen in the private sector only when very senior managerial personnel are dismissed, for fear that such personnel may go back and collect sensitive information. For the Li Wei-ling case, we don't see anything similar. Now, our media is undergoing a very chilly winter, so commercial radio should come out to explain the details. However, its spokesman try to explain just by saying that no bad words should be said about disputes between gentlemen. So, such an idiom cannot resolve public doubts and queries. The commercial radio has to abide by the broadcasting ordinance. The broadcaster should be able to handle its own affairs. Well, under the broadcasting ordinance, a broadcaster has to be fair and impartial as well. The commercial radio is within the fourth estate of our society. It has got a license. It is accountable to the public, and the public have expectations of them. In 1967, the program presenter, Mr. Lam Ban, was making a few minutes comments every day. Every day he used very strong language to criticize those who placed bombs everywhere to wound people. Eventually, he was burnt to death. So for the sake of freedom of speech, he sacrificed himself. Mr. Lam Ban died, and his family members also were aggrieved. But since 1967, Mr. Lam Ban has been respected by the public. Still, today, commercial radio is using 18th floor, room C, as the name of this very famous program. So, the commercial radio is not a business setup that casually and randomly publicizes itself. So when this sort of relationship exceeds a purely commercial relationship, it should explain to the public personnel deployment affairs. It should not use autonomy as an excuse to evade its accountability to the public. The renewal of license for commercial radio, the very severe criticisms directed by Li Wei-ling at C.Y. Leung, etc., etc., could have led to her dismissal. There were traces of such an arrangement. She was transferred from a morning program to an evening program just about a year after she was in the program. And why is it that shortly after she was transferred to an evening program, she was dismissed? Some people say that it's because she had been criticizing the senior officers day after day, thus damaging the reputation of commercial radio. Commercial radio might have thought so, but for a popular program host like Li Wei-ling, that was not the first time she's doing so. In the 10 years when she was with commercial radio, she has been doing the same. So why is it that there is this about turn on the part of the commercial radio, which not even allowed Li Wei-ling to collect her own belongings? It's alleged that Li Wei-ling has been monopolizing the floor. She was definitely not the fiercest program host. I think the previous hosts, Mr. Albert Cheng and Mr. Wong Yuk-man, had been even fiercer in their comments. And at one time, commercial radio was proud of Albert Cheng and Wong Yuk-man. Now Li Wei-ling is speaking on behalf of members of the public, and the driving instructor said that she had been speaking out for them. And when students in a particular school were abused, she also spoke out for them. She might not have been able to follow up on each and every incident, but she had allowed parents and students to have opportunities to voice their feelings and views on her program, such that the parties concerned would be able to seriously follow up on those incidents. Apart from allowing the disadvantaged to voice their views, Li Wei-ling is also a very hardworking member of the media. At the beginning of her career, she might have problems with her mode of breathing, her strength of voice, etc., etc., but she has been trying hard to improve herself. This is not the reason why we would like to form a select committee to look into the incident. Li Wei-ling has been speaking out of press freedom, and she had been voicing out the views of the disadvantaged. Is it that because of all these that she was violently dismissed? Yesterday, some colleagues told their personal experience, saying that they had been distorted by Li Wei-ling. I can also tell my own feelings. In my public affairs career, my first interview was conducted by Li Wei-ling. And when I left the interview, I was actually not very happy. But then, in this chamber, we should not be affected by our personal feelings. We should look at that media member to see whether or not she has been working hard and being neutral in her remarks, and whether or not she has been using the same yardstick to measure everybody. Of course, there can be a choice among values. Some people are more leftist. They would like to have equality of rights, like for the homosexuals. Some are more conservative. But more importantly, apart from their personal values, the most important thing is that they're using the same yardstick to measure everybody. Here I'd like to point out, if we want media members and commentators to have no values at all, and then after asking the leftists, they also ask the rightists, and they always slap every party on its face. A media member should have his own beliefs and values. We hope that commentators and critiques can use the same yardstick to criticize other people, be they old or young, male or female. Ng Ji-sam and Li Wei-ling are such media members. Our colleague had criticized this motion. It said that if we casually and randomly invoke the electoral powers and privileges ordinance to exercise our powers to look into personnel movements in the private sector and in the media, the media tycoons may be scared. And as a result, they may not be willing to invest in the industry. Why is it that media tycoons want to invest in the media? Do they want to politicize the media such that the media would become political tools and such that their business would be easier with the mainland? That is our greatest worry. We welcome those who have the financial ability to invest in the media and become part of it. However, we do not agree that they should change their financial muscles into political muscles such that the media would be silenced. Just a few years ago, we started to see a number of newspapers being transferred from one proprietor to another. It's just like the Economic Journal. We have actually seen changes in its editorial position. Is that the result of the transfer of proprietorship from one tycoon to another? It's said that media have been used as private tools. Well, the media can adopt different approaches. Some presenters can be more critical, some may be more modest. the public should be able to have the ability to differentiate amongst all these viewpoints. We shouldn't be afraid of truths, and we'll only be able to grasp the truths if we continue to do debate on them. So I support Ms. Claudia Mo's motion. And for the media, I hope that they can all honor their duties in their respective posts.
Mr. Albert Chan, yesterday, Mr. Chan Kim-bo complained here saying that he was once treated inappropriately, mistreated. He was mistreated by Ms. Li Wei-ling in a radio program. If you say someone has to complain about this, then I'm saying I'm the one most mistreated by Ms. Li Wei-ling. When the radio programs are in favor of the Civic Party, the Democratic Party, and we are regarded as radicals. And these program hosts attack us more severely than Tai Kung Pao and Wen Hui Pao. And our reputation suffered, our supporters have been swayed, and we lost votes to a great extent. We lost a lot of votes. So if you talk about personal treatment, personal experience, there's no reason why we should we support the setting up of a select committee. Well, actually, I raised this suggestion even before Ms. Claudia Mo did. At that point, no one in the pro-democracy camp did not suggest this. Mr. Chan Chi-chin and I and Mr. Leung Kok-hung are not part of the so-called lunchbox gathering group. And we were wondering why there was no such a suggestion to set up a select committee. And it was said that there was insufficient evidence. So I was outraged. How could you say that even before you set up a select committee? So I said I convened a press conference with Mr. Chan Chi-chin saying that People Power was in support of setting up a select committee and do justice to Ms. Li Wei-ling. And then we subsequently knew that Ms. Claudia Mo submitted the proposal one day ahead of me. So I'm glad that the Pan-Democrats are in support of this. Because if it's us that we propose to set up a select committee, the Pan-Democrats may not support us. For example, when we propose to do this, Mr. Andy Leung didn't support it. But of course, when it's Ms. Claudia Mo who suggested this, all Pan-Democrats seem to be supportive. I think it's partisan politics. They would oppose my proposal just because it's my proposal. And I'm talking about Pan-Democrats, including the leader of the Civic Party, Mr. Alan Leung. But it doesn't matter. History would reveal who is in the right and who is in the wrong. So I am happy that at the end of the day, the proposal will be supported by Pan-Democrats. Actually, I've drafted my motion. It's similar to Ms. Mo's to the extent of 60 or 70%. And if her motion is not passed, perhaps we can talk to the Secretariat. But if it's not passed, perhaps it's not worth the while to bring it up again. But all the same, we are suggesting that we should set up a select committee to exercise the power of Section 9.1 in accordance with Section 9.2 of the Electrical Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Let me now respond to Mr. So, the Secretary's remarks. He said that if a select committee were to be set up, we would be interfering with the media. Well, that's a lot of irony to me. In the past few years, the government intervened with the media so many times. I've tried to dug up some information from the records. ICAC file a petition to ask for a newspaper to hand over Mr. Liu Meng-hong's audio recording on an interview. And on the 3rd of June 2013, the police would like to summon Mr. Ho Wing-hong, a reporter of TVB, to testify in a court case. And also on the 6th of December, when a reporter asked a question of Mr. Hu, the police detained some media personnel. So when it comes to issues related to the big weeks, when the government's interest is at stake, you can expect media people to be detained, to be summoned, and so on and so forth. And now we want to set up a select committee to look into government interference or government's messing with the media. And we are accused by the Secretary as trying to interfere with the media. That's just nonsense. Be smart, Mr. So that you don't bring so many disasters to the government. It's just like what our information coordinator has done. He offered an article under a pen name to a newspaper attacking the Liberal Party's chairman. And it brought a lot of trouble to the Chief Secretary for Administration, and she had a hard time answering questions here. So, Mr. Secretary, don't just give out your name card. Be smart in answering questions of a political nature. Don't make yourself the butt of ridicule. And you don't use your brain in answering questions. Where you sit decides how you think, and you don't use your brain to think through things. You are paid more than $100,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So please do your job and use your brain. I have referred to a table that shows the Hong Kong U public opinion program incident and Ms LI Wei-ling's incident. There's a table comparing the two. One is about freedom of the press, another freedom of the academic freedom. And one accusation was made against Mr. Xi Wai-leung, and this one is made against Mr. Xi Wai-leung. Well, they are very similar. Mr. Chung Ting-yu wrote in the SCMP back then that through different channels, I've received messages from Mr. Chiu-hung saying that my survey is not welcomed. Mr. Tong doesn't like his own reputation and government's rating and popularity polled. And then Mr. Chung mentioned similar things in another article in the Hong Kong Economic Journal, saying that the POP of Hong Kong U has become a negative asset for Hong Kong U. If you look at the accusation made by Ms. LI Wei-ling against Mr. Xi Wai-leung, they are more focused and even more explosive. She said, someone close to Mr. C.Y. Well, Mr. Chung said that Mr. C.Y. tried to stop the post through a special channel. And in this case, Ms. Lee said that someone close to Mr. C.Y. asked her to be careful about her job. And it's also suggested that if you are able to do your phone-in program just like Mr. So-and-so, then it will be okay. In comparison, Mr. Chung received messages through a special channel. So the accusation made by Ms. Lee is more serious. And according to the official circle, this person close to C.Y. Leung was an accountability appointee who worked both in Mr. Donald Zhang and Mr. C.Y. Leung's administration. And at present, he is also a bespectacled senior official who is not a director of bureau. Well, actually, the establishment members have said similar things. No evidence, so on and so forth. Back then, when Mr. Martin Lee asked for a select committee to be set up, it was voted down in this council. But the Hong Kong University set up a 3-member panel chaired by a judge, and it was found out that there was intervention with the public opinion program, and Mr. Liu was the culprit. So without investigation, how can we find out the truth? Those members who are against this are trying to shield Mr. C.Y. Leung. You dare not allow the proposal to set up a select committee to set up. Just like those who initially did not support the setting up of select committee on the side of the Pan-Democrats. They were afraid that the truth will be found. I think we should set up the select committee to find out the truth, if not for something else. Either you are not confident about Mr. C.Y. Leung or about Ms. Li Wei-ling. On two occasions, in respect of my criticism of Ms. Li Wei-ling, I lodged formal complaints to the OFTA. The first time on the 19th of May 2009, the 22nd of May 2009. There were formal investigations, and there were formal rulings, not like the allegations made by Mr. Chan Kim-po. The complaint is about 3 things. The state, she said something untrue. The allegation against me was untrue. Her criticism was biased, and my reputation was affected. And according to the finding of the Broadcasting Authority, the statements against Mr. Albert Chan, I won't repeat them now, they are so serious, was not out of the range of proportionality and might affect Mr. Albert Chan's reputation. And the decision was that the BA is of a view that paragraph 34 of the Code on Broadcasting has been violated, and that is if an individual's reputation might be affected, then the licensee must be careful about that. The BA issued an advisory letter to commercial radio reminding to comply with the relevant requirements in the Code on Broadcasting. I have many interests. I said that if I were in charge of commercial radio, I would not hire Ms. Li Wei-ling because her analytical power was weak, and she didn't know a lot about policies. And that's my personal view about her. She didn't deserve the pay she got, but her program was popular. And now a program host who served commercial radio for so long was dismissed due to political reasons. That's why we must set up the Select Committee and give justice to the public.
Mr. Tommy Zhang, Mr. President, I have to declare, first of all, that my family members are shareholders of the commercial radio, and my family member has also been a host at commercial radio for many years. Today, the motion is about the Select Committee to be appointed to inquire into the immediate termination of the contract of Ms. Li Wei-ling, the radio host of commercial radio. The Liberal Party doesn't support this motion. First of all, I must state that the Liberal Party and myself are concerned about the freedom of the press and freedom of expression. And undoubtedly, commercial radio is one of the media organizations which has been allocated with the public airwaves. So there is a need to for it to monitor government policies. And therefore, if freedom of the press and freedom of speech is undermined in this sacking incident, then this matter attracts concern. And the license is due to expire in 2016. However, commercial radio apparently did not give any explicit reasons for dismissing Ms. Li Wei-ling, and Ms. Li Wei-ling accused commercial radio of kowtowing to the government and brutally sacked her. And it was worried that the freedom of expression would be undermined. Although the senior management of the commercial radio and the government time and again clarified their positions, however, they failed to address the public's doubts and allay the public's concerns. As freedom of the press and freedom of expression are important, I believe that the LegCo has a role to play in it. However, we must understand that the commercial radio is a commercial organization, and its employment relationship with Ms. Li Wei-ling is such that the company is entitled to make personnel changes or even make legal dismissals of the employees. Hong Kong is a free society. We must not casually use the trump card, that is to invoke the PNP to inquire into the personal changes within a private media organization, or the business environment of Hong Kong will be affected. Since the passing of the LegCo Powers and Privileges Ordinance in 1918, on 8 occasions, LegCo successfully invoked the PNP to set up the select committees. Apart from the Lehman Brothers in 2008, other incidents involved issues involving the public organizations and the government. About the short power case in Yun Chau Kok in 2001, and then in 2003, an inquiry was made into the HA's handling of SARS cases. Apart from these, there had not been any inquiries into the operation of a private organization. To appoint the Select Committee to inquire into the personal changes of a private organization is not the only solution. Alternatively, the matter should be followed up by the ITBP and all the relevant personnel, including Ms. Li Wei-ling. Representatives of commercial radio and government officials can attend that meeting and explain their positions further. If the ITBP could clarify this incident and allay public's concerns, LegCo would not be accused of interfering with the operation of a commercial organization and to unnecessarily interfere with the business environment of Hong Kong. So the Liberal Party does not support the motion to invoke the PNP to inquire into this matter. Now, I can also give my personal views. Like I said, I have a family member who is a shareholder of commercial radio, and it's my wife. And through decades of contact with Mr. Ho and Mr. Ho K, his son, we have had numerous contacts with them. I firmly believe that the two of them safeguard freedom of the press in Hong Kong, and they also understand the responsibilities of the commercial radio. I don't believe that the government would say that the license for this organization will not be renewed, since this organization has been established for over 50 years as a licensee. So, first of all, it is difficult for me to believe that this will take place, and secondly, that they will kowtow and bow to pressure and decide not to renew the license. Now, Mr. President, I also mentioned just now that I was a radio host at commercial radio for a number of years. About the management and the culture within commercial radio, I also have some inklings. I don't believe in making open accusations against colleagues, be it accusations between fellow colleagues or between a superior and a subordinate. Of course, when I was a radio host at commercial radio, I had no idea when I would be sacked, because it's a commercial organization, then without the support of advertisements and with low audience ratings, it just cannot do. Of course, no one checked my audience ratings. But, Mr. President, you might ask why on the day when your program is on air, you get less advertisements. And it's best for you to shut up and give way to news programs, etc. And when it's almost 28 minutes after the program is on air, and then nobody hints that you should shut up, then you might worry that your program hasn't got any advertisements. And throughout my years of working at commercial radio, I feel that it's difficult for a commercial organization to be sustainable without the support of advertisement income. So, about my understanding of the two Mr. Ho's, Mr. George Ho and Mr. Joseph Ho, and also regarding my experience in commercial radio, I believe that this decision only involves personnel changes. It's only a commercial decision. It has nothing to do with the freedom of the press.
Mr. Kenneth Leung, thank you, President. President, on the 12th of January, on the program Letter to Hong Kong of RTHK, I wrote this article. I said that we have entered 2014. We were just barely 2 weeks into 2014. But then we feel that the winter is really bitter. Now, what kind of a bitter winter it is? It is about suppression of press freedom and also manipulation of the freedom of opinion. And I felt a chill down my spine. That was on the 12th of January. President, I wrote that article because on the 6th of January, Ming Pao suddenly announced that Kevin Lau, the chief editor, would be replaced. And in fact, to be replaced by a Malaysian Chinese who knows nothing about Hong Kong. This is Mr. Chong Tian-siong. Now, that happened about 2 months ago, but I think this winter has become even more bitter today. After the 6th of January, many things happened, including what many members have been talking about, that Ms. Li Wei-ling of Commercial Radio was suddenly dismissed without a reason. And what is more serious is that Mr. Kevin Lau was attacked by hitmen. And yesterday, two senior persons of Hong Kong Morning News were attacked in Tsim Sha Tsui East. Our freedom of the press and freedom of expression, have they sunk to such a low level? Many members of the public and members of the audience, when they see sudden replacement of chief editors and radio hosts, they would ask this question: is it that the media senior management were trying to please the Hong Kong SARG and the Beijing government? So they put up this posture of being balanced, that they don't want their radio hosts to present a certain attitude. Now, in that case, it really amounts to supporting the Hong Kong SARG by, in fact, trying to make very minor negative comments, but in fact helping to support the government. And therefore, some magazines and newspapers also have to replace editors because they need to continue with the advertising income. But we never know this for sure. If we do not set up a select committee with investigative powers, we will never be able to get to the bottom of all these happenings. Many friends, including our friends here in the chamber, would say that this is a commercial decision. Why do you want to mobilize so much manpower and resources, including invoking the Legislative Council PNP Ordinance? Well, in fact, many things that happen in society which might have an impact on our core values, they could be packaged as a legal issue, a private commercial dispute at a commercial organization. Well, I'm really talking about the replacement of Mr. Kevin Lau and the unreasonable dismissal of Ms. Li Wei-ling, including the denial of a license for Hong Kong Television Network. If you look at the Li Wei-ling incident, if it had happened overseas, it could not have taken place. First of all, under the Employment Ordinance, there is no fair procedure. Ms. Li Wei-ling was not subject to any warning before she was suddenly dismissed. That's the first point. Secondly, commercial radio is not a private commercial organization. If you look at the laws, let us look at Prevention of Bribery Ordinance. An organization that makes use of our very precious airwaves is regarded as a public body in POBO. Whether you like Ms. Li Wei-ling or not, whether you like her style or not, she is a popular public affairs commentator and a radio host. And even under such circumstances, a public body, which happens to be a broadcaster, did not give any warning, and there was no written or oral correspondence with Ms. Li Wei-ling beforehand. Li Wei-ling was suddenly dismissed. This is something that is unimaginable. Now, of course, commercial radio makes use of our very precious airwaves, and it is a public body. It must give an account and come clean in front of the public, instead of just saying that the parting of gentlemen will necessitate no trading of vicious words. If we look at press freedom in Hong Kong, especially when we look at 2013 World Press Freedom Index, this is done by the Reporters Without Frontier, which measures press freedom in the world every year. In 2013, Hong Kong came 58th out of 179 countries or places. People may say, oh, that's not too bad. However, when we say we are an international metropolis, that we are one of the 3 largest financial centers in the world, and yet in terms of press freedom, we came 58th. Compared to 2012, a drop of 4 places. And if you look at this index, we don't even compare well with many other developing countries, including the Republic of Ghana or Uruguay. And then in 2014, we have seen so much brutal attack. Now, I can't imagine how much lower we will sink as a result in terms of press freedom. And we want to ask this question: is Hong Kong's press freedom reasonably and sufficiently safeguarded? And of course, the administration will tell you there is a lot of safeguard. But is that the case? Article 39 of the Basic Law seeks to implement the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which makes sure that everyone has the right to express his opinion without any interference. And the expressing of one's opinion would include Ms. Li Wei-ling expressing her own opinions in her programs. That is important. She has her own style. Like it or not, you can also make your judgment that her questions are stupid. That's all right. But did commercial radio do any appraisal with her and warn her, and whether there were complaints lodged against her? Because she was popular. And Article 39 also says that Hong Kong citizens have the right to express his opinion, including Ms. Li Wei-ling's freedom to express her own views on the program. This is very clearly written. Now, of course, press freedom and freedom of speech, if they should be manipulated and killed, you can do it in many ways. And the Reporters Without Frontier said there would be so many ways to do it, and many countries do it in different ways. I never imagined that Hong Kong could sink so low that we would have hitmen attacking people with cleavers if someone is not liked. In many developing countries, of course, there are investigative journalists who would disappear all of a sudden without any warning, and they are killed without any warning. In many countries, the police can take away a journalist and detain him and force him to reveal the source of his stories. Now, this is not done in Hong Kong because there is protection in Hong Kong. And of course, there are countries where there are laws so that journalists which write stories that are not welcomed by the powers that be would have to appear in court. In Hong Kong, we also have defamation laws, and if the SALG wants to invoke those laws, it can very freely do so. Now, of course, in January, I still believed that the manipulation of Hong Kong's press would still be in a more gentle manner and it be indirect, say, for example, by withdrawing advertisements or by appointing the senior members of the media to a consultative body like the CPPCC. This is indirect manipulation. But in the past month, I can see that if the withdrawal of advertisements, etc., is not effective enough, so to speak, then people who have the power, if they want to manipulate the media, then it's all right. They would resort to violence. But what are we seeing today in Hong Kong? Is this the Hong Kong culture that we have known for so many years? Now, of course, if the administration or government would want to influence the media, there are many other ways to do it as well. Now, I was talking about the renewal of license, and also if you conduct a briefing for the media, the information coordinator of the government would say 2 media organizations would not be invited because we don't like their reporting. Can that be done? Will this be done? So, to me, the Li Wei-ling incident should really be investigated by an independent select committee, making use of the LCPNP ordinance. Of course, some members are saying that this may incur a lot of public money, but we are talking about a core value, and that is press freedom and freedom of speech. Just now, Mr. Tommy Chang said we should respect the decision of a commercial organization, but I also respect the economic entity that we are a free economy. We want it to still be able to operate smoothly and effectively, and one of the very important components of that society is freedom of information. Without freedom of information, without press freedom, even if we have a free economy, we will not be able to make correct commercial decisions. We just can't do it, because if I have false information, cooked up information coming to me every day, there is no way I can verify whether the information is correct, and I have no way to listen to independent analyses. Then how can I involve myself in commercial transactions by making the right decisions? We just can't do it. Let me now quote from Thomas Jefferson. This is what he said.
Freedom is eternal vigilance. 自由
Freedom, including press freedom and freedom of speech, are fragile. We must watch over it all the time. We must safeguard it continuously. If you say all incidents are isolated incidents, that they are just commercial decisions, that they are trivial decisions, then we are going to lose our freedom. And the process of losing it will happen without our knowing if we do not continuously monitor the situation. So, President, I speak in total support of Ms. Claudia Mo's motion. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Hempen. Thank you, Mr. President. In the past, when members spoke or when they proposed motions, usually I would say that I would like to thank them for moving the motion so that members had the chance to engage in the debate. But for today's motion, I think I take it with a lot of reluctance. Well, it is not something new to us when we talk about invoking the powers and privileges of the electrical. I've only been a member for 2 years, and I've been hearing about it many times. And it seems that a lot of us would like to invoke this very draconian weapon. Now, we have some internal personnel matters within a commercial organization, and yet someone would escalate it to moral high ground, saying that it has to do with press freedom. I just doubt whether this is really the case. For this draconian measure, it seems that many people would like to make use of it. But I don't think we're talking about something serious. I don't think it's got anything to do with serious public interest. I think you are just exaggerating the case. Now, does it mean that you are using this salt to chop your barbecued pork? So I think it's a matter of double standard, and it is a case of exaggeration. I speak against the motion. First of all, I don't think it is worth the while. Before I came back to the chamber, I looked up the previous cases of invoking the powers and privileges ordinance. Since 1993, there were 8 occasions on which we started an investigation invoking the powers and privileges. It's easy for us to see that every time when this power and privilege ordinance was invoked, it has always been a costly exercise. For the first time, we passed a vote of no confidence against the then Director of Housing, Mr. Miller. $16 million were spent in the year 2006 in the month of June in relation to Mr. Leung Chin-man. We started an investigation into his use of discretionary power concerning the Grand Promenade. $400 million public money was involved, and then 300,000 square feet of land was involved. We spent $15 million. Recently, for the Lehman Brothers case, it went on for 3 years. Senior government officials, Hong Kong MA officials, SFC officials, and the senior management of 6 major banks were also summoned, and we spent millions of dollars. Do we really need to invoke the powers and privileges ordinance before we can let people see that justice is being done? According to previous experience, money spent on investigation was of a huge sum. Every time it involved over $10 million. Just imagine that if we are to spend $10 million so as to deal with an allegation which is merely backed up by the complainant herself, saying that she herself is the evidence. Now, whether it is something major or minor, we would like to invoke the powers under the LCPMP ordinance. I think it is the taxpayers who are footing the bill. Would it be welcomed by the community? I think the powers and privileges are above everything else. We shouldn't lightly make use of them. Just like when we prepare our dishes, you have a pork chopper for cutting pork, and then you use other devices to deal with other ingredients. So I think you are exaggerating. You are using something which is inappropriate and disproportionate. We aren't the government. We aren't part of the executive. So should we be using our powers to look into a commercial organization? If we start to investigate into commercial radio, will it be regarded as interference? So it is not worth it. Now today, they fire a staff member, then we start to look into the matter, it will be regarded as interference with press freedom. In the past, Mr. Chiu-hung had a strange relationship with Dr. Robert Chung. I would like to mention this point, but in fact I had not wanted to refer to this, but then Mr. Chen has referred to this. I think some of the members of the pan-democratic camp had a divided personality. They have double standards. Recently, in relation to the Hong Kong Youth Opinion Poll program, I think according to the DP's standards, it should have been investigated into. For the public opinion poll program of the Hong Kong Youth, they would like to give the average marks. They don't actually publish the raw data. So they give us the impression that a particular official has a very poor image. We don't know whether it's been conjured. I don't know whether it is a deliberate act so as to mislead the public. Perhaps under different sorts of pressure, or maybe under public pressure, saying that we would like him to publish the data. Ultimately, the data was published, and in fact, in relation to the CE's popularity rating, I think some citizens had given it 0 for the rating. I think when I was in the first year of my university education, when I studied a subject on statistics, and when we look at the question of an average figure, we can have a mean, a median, or a mode. When we have extreme figures, then we have to doubt the validity of the figures so that we can understand whether it is in line with normal distribution. I think this is the ABCs of statistics. Many people understand this. It isn't anything difficult. But how come that we have got a group of professors and they've been leading this opinion poll and they have made this mistake? I would just assume that it is done unintentionally. But then if it is known to a first-year student of the universities, how come a professor doesn't know it? So can it be regarded as unintentional? Is it meant to be deliberately misleading? So I think it's a matter of ethics. we can build our pride on our academic performance because we've always been harsh against those who fabricate their evidence. So it is a matter of the moral values of the scholars. It is also part of our core values. It is something very important. So for a professor in the top-notch University of Hong Kong to resort to this, I am afraid it will have far-reaching consequences on the students of Hong Kong. It is something serious. Now, for Ms. Claudia Mo, unfortunately, she is not in her seat. I just want to ask her this question. For this matter, if I suggest that we should invoke the LCP&P Ordinance to check whether the Hong Kong U has been fabricating the evidence, then I hope Ms. Mo can tell me whether she would support my proposal, my request. Is it in line with public interest? Indeed, it is. Mr. President, I think long hair is interrupting me when I am speaking. I think what I'm referring to really has to do with public interest, but Claudia Mo has remained silent, so I think they have schizophrenia. Please don't have double standards. For commercial radio, a staff member was dismissed, so if we start investigation, it is tantamount to interference. Now, if a professor is accused of fabricating the evidence, then can a citizen claim that he's the evidence? And if we start to carry out the investigation, then perhaps you would say that we are interfering with their academic autonomy. I think this will just go on and on without an end. Let me cite from Lao Tzu. He has said that governing a nation would be like cooking a dish. You don't need to be too bossy. And like ruling a nation, if you don't need to do anything which is unnecessary, just stay away from it. So just obey the laws of nature. As legislative members, we shouldn't tamper too much. We shouldn't be wasting lots of public resources. I think we should just let the event take its natural course. And I don't think we should be the ones starting all the unnecessary moves. I think Ms. Mo likes very much to invoke the powers and privileges, but she is not here, but I very much hope that she will answer this question. Say, for example, tomorrow, if I apply to the President to invoke the LCP&P Ordinance to look into the case of the Hong Kong U opinion poll program, if the Civic Party is to support, then I will seriously consider the proposal.
Dr. Fernando Zhang. President, Ms. Claudia Mo is not in this conference hall. Perhaps I can give Mr. Chen Hang-pen my own perspective. The public Hong Kong U Public Opinions Program collects public opinion and analyzes public opinion, and we can have different interpretations and understandings concerning the results. But then the commercial radio is a broadcaster. It's a member of the mass media. The radio station or the broadcaster needs to be regulated because it has its influence as part of the mass media. So we have to make sure that there is that press freedom is upheld, and that the broadcasting services provided by the broadcaster are not biased. So we need to make sure that the information disseminated by broadcaster is not one-sided or biased. Now, Ms. LI Wei-ling has been dismissed. She has been making very biting comments. In fact, her radio programs were quite popular. And she was dismissed, and her allegation was that commercial radio had to kneel down because its license was up for renewal. So did anyone bring pressure to bear on commercial radio, causing it to have to dismiss Ms. Li Wei-ling? So the decision was not just a decision in relation to personnel matters. Now, Ms. Li Wei-ling was a famous host. Maybe Mr. Wong Ting-kwang didn't know her, but many people in Hong Kong know her. Many people listened to her programs, and she had a lot of influence in society because in certain incidents, after certain parties were given the opportunity to appear on her program, the development of those incidents changed. So we, as Mr. Chan has referred to, using a very forceful weapon to deal with a very small matter. We are now looking at whether press freedom has been suppressed. Now, in fact, Taipan, Albert Chang, some time ago, made open some tape recordings or audio recordings, and we could see that someone in the radio station that he was serving in did not like Li Wei-ling and wanted Li Wei-ling to be removed. And in fact, the liaison office was cited as disliking Li Wei-ling. And Ms. Shem Yi-lan on the 23rd of February said this. She is the chairman of the HKJA. She referred to the dismissal of Ms. Lee. She's referred to the pulling out of advertisements from AM 730 and Apple Daily. She referred to the HKTV incident. She referred to how the South China Morning Post dealt with Li Wangyang's death and so on and so forth. She referred to a series of incidents, and she also referred to incidents that people didn't know. For example, during the container terminal workers strike, a full interview with Mr. Lee Chek-yan was taken out. Then there was a photo taken showing the workers throwing things at the photos of Li Ka-shing and the senior management, and again the photo was taken out. And then concerning the Raphael, and then the incident surrounding Raphael Hui and the Kwok brothers, only the photo of Raphael Hui was allowed to appear in a particular newspaper. And then Choi Chi-kung, Mangok, they were not allowed to be interviewed by certain newspapers. And then instructions were given that when the individual traveler scheme was reported on, the emphasis must be on the economic benefits brought to Hong Kong. Reporters were reminded that without the individual traveler scheme, reporters would lose their jobs. They would not be able to get their pay. And Sometimes a journalist might want to write an article, but then the editor banned it, and as a result, the journalist has to pass the article or the report to other newspapers. So according to Ms. Sham, these are incidents unknown to the public. So we are talking about our fundamentals: freedom of the press, freedom of speech. These are being suppressed. Li Wei-ling, you can see that on the surface, Li Wei-ling was dismissed abruptly, but what were the causes behind the dismissal? Was it systematically orchestrated? Was it part of the effort to suppress freedom of the press? We want to know. We have to investigate. If we do not invoke upon the powers and privileges ordinance, what other means are there available to find out the truth? So let the pro-establishment members answer me. Ms. Sham mentioned incidents that the public know and incidents that the public do not know. What should we do as LegCo members? Is it that we should turn a blind eye and turn a deaf ear to all these? What tools do we have in our hands to let everybody in Hong Kong see the truth? How can we make sure that we can act in a timely manner so that press freedom in Hong Kong will not continue to shrink? So the answer is simple. I think the dismissal of Ms. Li Wei-ling by commercial radio is puzzling to us all. Now, Ms. Li, in her radio programs, gave assistance to people in the disadvantaged groups. For example, the container terminal workers, they were allowed to use her radio program as the platform to voice their sufferings. And recently, some students who had hearing impairment were bullied, and Li Wei-ling was willing to let the audio recordings or tape the sound recordings be broadcast on the program. And in fact, one of the hostages in the Philippines, Ms. Yik-ling, also openly voiced her gratitude to Ms. Li Wei-ling. And then on one occasion, during Mid-Autumn Festival, I and Ms. Li Wei-ling met some underprivileged groups, and they openly told the public the hardship that they faced, especially during festive seasons. So how come, what wrong has Ms. Li Wei-ling done? What has she done to warrant the treatment of not being allowed to go back to her office to collect her belongings? So who was the mastermind behind her dismissal? Were there causes behind the dismissal that we do not know? We want the truth to be revealed, and if after investigation it is discovered that nobody has tried to suppress press freedom, then of course that's welcome. But then we have reasons to believe that Ms. Li Wei-ling was dismissed because of political reasons. And so with these remarks, I support Ms. Claudia Mo's motion. Thank you.
Mr. Wong Yuk-man. Thank you, Mr. President. I studied broadcasting, learned broadcasting, and taught broadcasting for over 40 years. To safeguard the freedom of speech and to uphold justice, I had been suppressed and oppressed. Therefore, in this chamber today, on this related debate, I have very deep feelings. The public affairs program host Li Wei-ling of commercial radio was suddenly sacked. Speech freedom has died. Our public airwaves have actually been killed. It's already too late now to act. For a decade, our famous program hosts use very critical language to comment on public affairs. Ever since June 2013, Li Wei-ling had been appealed to the public to take to the streets to overrule Tongchi-Wan. That was back in 2003, and in a year's time, I was silenced. In 2004, Yu Zhang of commercial radio said that they decided not to rely on emotional appeals. Rather, they decided to adopt a rational approach in handling matters. And this lady today, as a program host, was dismissed. She did invite Kwok-hung to comment public affairs, but then she was prohibited from talking about the silencing of Albert Cheng and Yuk-man. She had favored the Democratic Party. She criticized and accused me without giving me a chance to explain. The LSD and People Power started the referendum in the 5 districts, but were also criticized by her. The DP put up a proposal for a false universal suffrage, and People Power put up a struggle, and Li Wei-ling accused them. In September 2012, in the electoral election, Li Wei-ling stepped on a very risky approach by smearing the progressive Democrats that were pseudo-Democrats attacking the genuine Democrats. As for Li Wei-ling's deliberate criticism of myself and my colleagues, etc., etc., I'd not like to repeat her poor behavior. Many people said that Li Wei-ling had been too eloquent in commenting public affairs, and they praised her as a very good program host. However, to judge the host of a media member is best to see whether he or she is consistent in upholding justice. In 2004, there was a paragraph on Mr. Albert Cheng being silenced on radio programs. She put up a solo there. She said, "Yesterday was the most unhappy day ever since I joined the commercial radio. All along, I do not believe that commercial radio will sack Albert Cheng because that's not in the interest of commercial radio." That's what she said. She said although she didn't really like the style of Albert Cheng did try to uphold justice for the ordinary public as a social function, and nobody could deny that. In the commercial sector, the labor relationship between the employers and the employees are personal decisions. But as Ms. Yu Zhang of commercial radio always emphasized, commercial radio is not just an ordinary commercial entity. By using public airwaves, it's accountable to the public. And personnel deployment does not just involve ordinary labor relations. Press freedom is also involved. The paradox is that up to this moment, she said that she didn't feel that she was, well, the press freedom or speech freedom in commercial had been reducing. There are people, she said, that Li Wei-ling had not yet been as famous as Albert Cheng, so she did not have that feeling. That's why she said she was still able to air her views. But given the Albert Cheng incident, we could not easily and can randomly say that there's no longer speech freedom in commercial radio. And she said that one of the most important reasons for her joining commercial radio is that it is an accountable broadcaster. She was told by the operator that after taking up office in commercial radio for a month, what Mr. Choi Tong-ho told her had been proved. She said that she loved her colleagues. However, she said, given that unlovely incident, she was very unhappy. That's what she said then. She's of course unhappy that in 10 years' time she's also sacked. On the 13th of last month, Ms. Li Wei-ling called a press conference to explain the commercial radio incident, saying that that's 100% direct suppression from Wai-ling. She said the commercial radio knelt down. There's no reason for commercial radio to dismiss her. 10 years ago, Li Wei-ling deliberately defended commercial radio, and now in 10 years' time, she is sacked. So history always teases people. What happened to others previously will happen to you in future. As for Mr. Ho Zhuoji of commercial radio and Mr. Ling O, another program host of commercial radio, their remarks actually indirectly indicated that commercial radio had been adopting censure. Ms. Yu Zhang had been managing commercial radio for 10 years. Again, commercial radio is bowing down to pressure. I will not feel happy about Li Wei-ling's dismissal. She is indeed dismissed by commercial radio, which owe the public an explanation. There was this ancient poet who said that everybody is nobody is an isolated island. Whatever happened to one person may happen to others. The silencing of program hosts in the past did not lead to public outcry. As a result, a lot of critical comments disappeared from the media. Do we really have genuine speech freedom? You can take reference from my article in 1989 with the theme of Does Hong Kong have speech freedom? Now, there's one paragraph, Secretary, which said, in a market of free opinion, a person has something to say and has the freedom to say it, but he may not be able to say it such that everybody can hear. Speech freedom is the privilege of just a small batch of people. If media do not have speech freedom, then it is a brutal fact. Nobody else would have speech freedom. Those individuals or groups who control directly or indirectly the media will have the purchasing power to purchase advertising time on TV programs and radio programs, particularly for the minority that has close relationship with the media and those who know how to create news, those who own media to speak for them, like political figures, media workers, particularly those on the basis of personal beliefs, and those with a style of heroism would advocate for individualism. Now, these people have the right and forum to speak, and these people have speech freedom. In the past few months, there were a great deal of incidents in the political arena in Taiwan, in Eastern Europe, etc., etc. Our opinion leaders have been very, very busy airing their views from day to night. According to surveys, public opinion is first aired by the opinion leaders before being spread. The opinion leaders will influence society and the media and affect the effect of their opinion. As for the positive functions of the media, it really depends on the quality of the views. For those people who pose as scholars, and those who speak for the sake of speaking, those who are speaking for the sake of fame, and those who speak behind closed door, etc., do not satisfy the public aspiration. When the media choose opinion, they give consideration to the market. They find it very easy to get closer to the dignitaries. When big news occurs, the public figures will wait for reporters to interview them at home. They'd like to be shown on TV and radio programs. Journalists would like to do their homework easily, so they collaborate. Moreover, sometimes there are not sufficient facts as evidence. Opinion leaders, particularly those backed by political parties, can they produce facts? No. Very often, they fabricate facts. They try to spread news, and there are these people who pose as experts and scholars in order to please the Chinese communists. Now, this was published in October 1989 in the Mingpao Monthly. I was teaching in a tertiary institution, so I had strong feelings. But 10 years ago, I already forecast this downfall of the media. It's just like Professor Cheng Chong-tai spoke in his article on the 25th of February about the media. He said in that article that Hong Kong people had been suppressed in terms of speech freedom via the media. Therefore, we have to be firm in our posts. We have to rely in future online and digital media. So in future, so long as the media can stand firm on its feet, they can switch to other battlefields. We don't need to be saddened. Mr. Lu Xun said that if there are still people who would like to continue to live, they should dare to cry, to laugh, to speak, or even to get drunk. Today, Hong Kong's political arena is shadowed. Our speech freedom is further diminishing. The public should understand this reality and try to make use of new forms of media. We should give up our public airwaves and turn to electronic media. That is the most effective way to combat suppression against speech freedom. Voltaire did say that I may not agree with you, but I will fight to the end for your speech freedom. Now, in front of us, there is this very clear issue of right and wrong. I don't like Li Wei-ling, but I'll defend her speech freedom to the end. Well, somebody said that Ms. Li Wei-ling is the worst program host for peak hours. But if her speech freedom is suppressed, I will stand up to defend her speech freedom. Well, this motion is just a routine. Somebody will be using this to put up a gesture. I wrote an article of a few thousand words to share with you my feelings. I support this motion today just for one reason. If somebody do not believe the words of Li Wei-ling, we can inquire into those words. If there are people who query their words, again, we can conduct an inquiry. So we can invoke the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance. With these remarks, I support the motion.
Mrs. Regina Yip. President, after hearing Mr. Raymond Wong's speech, which is sometimes colloquial, sometimes academic and classic, I think there's an article circulating on the internet on the gobbling up of Crimea by Russian. I wonder if Mr. Wong would be interested to take a look. Well, I have no relationship with commercial radio. I've only seen Mr. Kah-kit once. But sometimes I was interviewed by Ms. LI Wei-ling in pajamas in the morning sometimes. Well, she was sharp in her remarks, and some would say that too aggressive. But it's entertaining. Her program is entertaining, so there are quite a few body of quite a big body of audience. And recently, the fewer calls were made by Ms. Lee or people like her to me in the morning. I don't support the idea of appointing a select committee, although a famous host was dismissed, and there have been speculations about the reasons. I don't think legislative members should allow our imagination or doubts or our own ideas to agree with this motion to set up a select committee to investigate what the government might have done. There have been recent incidents where media personnel have been attacked. But the dismissal of Ms. Wai-ling is something between commercial radio and she. I think this is just a labor relationship issue. All of us have been either employers or employees. I think an employer has the right to hire and to fire. And in many contracts, whether it's government's contracts, unless those who are on permanent terms, government and big organizations such as Hospital Authority or small organizations like my think tank, there's always a clause that dismissal can be effective without giving reasons, and you can either give a notice or notice in lieu. A notice of 1 month will suffice. So, because sometimes the organization, as the employer, has to fire a certain employee. Ms. Lee was an employee of commercial radio. Commercial radio could dismiss her on commercial reasons or other reasons. If we are to investigate, we should investigate commercial radio, but I wonder what we can find out, because you can never find out what is in the mind of the management. And investigation targeted at the government is not appropriate. So the New People Party is not in favor of conducting an investigation into the action of government in relation to an incident of a labor relationship. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Lam Kwok-hung. Mr. President, Mr. Ban Chan is away for the time being, and he just now asked, what if he moves the motion to inquire into the public opinion program of the Hong Kong U, and whether we will be supporting his motion? Well, I will, in fact, but he's away at the moment. Only if he can prove one thing, and that is if the POP of Hong Kong U deliberately conducts a survey to target C.Y. Leung. That is because it is publicly funded. So if the surveys target a particular division, in particular C.Y. Leung, then it will be in big trouble. In particular, C.Y. Leung, who is a leader and enjoying such a high popularity rating. So it's just like a quarrel between children. It's like the opposition has no reasoning at all. First of all, how many Hong Kong university do we have? Hong Kong University is funded by the UGC to implement the education policy. It is a public organization. Well, you can say that the commercial radio is not a public organization as such. It is a commercial organization. But when the commercial radio was issued the license in 1960, there was an agreement that since RTHK and the other radio station failed to act as the government's mouthpiece, the commercial radio was set up to help the government as the government's mouthpiece. Now, I don't know whether it is still the case. What happens if there is no inquiry? We had two members who were once legislative members, one Mr. Albert Chang and one Mr. Raymond Wong, who spoke just now, and no inquiries were ever conducted for these two individuals. The Powers and Privileges Ordinance was not invoked to inquire into the dismissal of these two hosts. The PNP was not invoked to inquire into the reason why they were threatened to leave Hong Kong. So we have different allegations, and some say that Mr. Albert Chang is subject to communist threats, and that's why he had to leave Hong Kong. So that's the reason. That's the result of not having any inquiry. Well, what about Mr. Raymond Wong? What happened to him after he left the commercial radio? Has the situation worsened? The objective situation is that we had fewer criticisms against the government. Now, only shameless government would say in relation to Ms. Li Wei-ling's incident that no such thing ever happened, because her allegation was very clear. She said that somebody close to Sau-lan asked her to be careful about her job. Well, in fact, Mr. Ben Chan, if I ask her to come and clarify, they could say that no such thing happened. That would just be fair. If that never happened, then you don't have to worry about wasting time. The matter will die down very soon. Except for the Mr. Kam-lam, the inquiry went on for 4 years, and your party supported the inquiry. And Mr. Paul Chair also said that inquiry would be impossible, and yet it was initiated. So, Mr. President, isn't it a joke? Everyone knows that the inquiry would go nowhere, and still it went on. So today, we ask for an inquiry to be conducted. And Mr. Raymond Wong quoted some theories which he taught as a lecturer, and he said that some enjoy some privileges as a particular social class, and then these people have the right to speak. Now, Mr. Ben Chan, you are a member of this council, so you also have some privileges. You face the media, and you are subject to criticisms. So, Mr. President, today, what we are pursuing is this. The government says that airwaves are valuable resources, and views have been expressed through the airwaves, and it's a question whether there was any intervention involved. And that's Ms. Li Wei-ling's allegation. Secretary, you're supposed to implement policies. If someone makes such a blatant allegation, don't you think you should look into it? You can't say let it go. The problem is the commercial radio is not making sense. It says that when gentlemen part, they should not speak ill of each other without giving any explanation at all. If you say that this is an employment issue between employer and employee, if this is the angle, then how many employers are there which can only conduct business with licenses issued by the government? I asked every government official, every bureau directors, I asked, where can we find a jurisdiction in which the state leader or the president would personally inquire into whether a license should be issued to a media organization? That only happens in Hong Kong. So when members say that it is none of our business if a media organization decides to sack somebody, my question is, do we have any other such organizations which operates on the issuance of licenses? And I face a lot of lawsuits. The civic radio, the citizens radio, we received summonses many times, and we were accused of not operating the radio station properly, and then we were fined, or we were penalized. So I can't agree with members' views. They say that this is an ordinary organization and there's nothing wrong in dismissing a staff. So do your homework and think carefully before you speak. And when we look at the track record, we see that the performance of this organization is getting worse. When we further dwell into its history, we find more and more problems. So shouldn't we investigate into this matter? Should we really investigate into anything at all? This is an issue of Hong Kong people's concern. Hong Kong people are concerned about Mr. Ricky Wong's incident, and again in this council we suggested an investigation be launched, and yet it was turned down. Well, Mr. President, your party believes in according priority to livelihood issues. So freedom of the press and freedom of expression, aren't these livelihood issues as well? Don't Hong Kong people listen to radio? Don't Hong Kong people read newspapers? Or should they will they be happy just to receive petty favors and petty gifts? So it is very important because we have the desire to know, we have the instinct to express. If you say that livelihood issues are no trivial issues, then how can we say that the desire to know or the right to know is something trivial, as it involves whether people are slaves, whether anyone can decide who can speak and who cannot? Mr. President, I really don't understand the logic of the parties opposing the motion today. If they supported the inquiry into Mr. Kam Nai-wai's conduct towards his subordinate, then today the commercial radio has repeated its the incident and even the chief executive has been involved, and we should look into each and every matter concerning C.Y. Leung because he has no credibility. So why shouldn't we investigate? Now I've spoken for 10 minutes. And for the anti-opposition camp, they say that it's a waste of money. Well, look at what we're doing now. Apart from the bills, the procedure for bills, which I was not present, what about the motion which do not have any binding effect? Why do you participate in these motion debates? The DAB also speak on these debates. And you call this the trump card, and that it should not be invoked because it would be a waste of money. But we should play the trump card when necessary. Mr. President, even in the Chinese history, we saw the application or the trump card being played whenever someone complains to a court. So, Mr. President, this is outrageous. The Communist Party is really an eyesore. Mr. Robert Chung, the person in charge of public opinion programs, the matter eventually reached the CPCC, and then in front of the whole media, criticisms were passed against one individual. You talked about an inquiry into Mr. Robert Chung, and I fully support you. I think that it should be done. So make no delay. You should come up with good grounds so that I can support you. Please proceed with it as soon as possible. Don't make verbal promises. Just do it, or I will tell your constituents. If you say that Mr. Robert Chung has been subject to certain pressure, for example, C.Y. Leung phoning him, etc., let's investigate. Some seem to come. And also Mr. Peter Lee, he should also come. And who else? And Mr. Chen Chi-kong. All of them, the whole bunch should come. So, Mr. President, just to reply to him, this is not a trivial matter. Manipulating public opinion to smear the chief executive. So, Mr. Chen Chi-kong, Peter Lee, Robert Chung, etc., they should all come, and there should be an investigation. I agree. Let's see how you vote in a moment. Don't just bluff. So I promise you, are you going to vote and support us in a moment? If not, Mr. President, please coach him. He could make big mistakes by what he says. So, Mr. Manchan, go back, think carefully, come up with good reasons to inquire into Mr. Robert Chung's affairs. Your time is up, Mr. Lam Kwok-hung. Does any other member wish to speak?
Mr. Paul Chair. Thank you, President. President, let me tell you what I'm not going to talk about first. The importance of freedom of speech, monitoring the government, judiciary, independence, etc. All those could be taken for granted, and many members have talked about it, and I'm not going into those. As to whether there has been a recent threat against freedom of speech, and if we do not remain vigilant, will it be clawed back, etc. I'm not going to talk about those because we know it in our hearts. And then people have said they know the whole family, who is a good guy, who is a bad guy. and the nature of Li Wei-ling being a radio host, her credibility, her professional skills, etc. I'm not going into those. I won't even go into personal grudges. And also my own opinion towards CR and Li Wei-ling, I'm not going into those either. So what I'm going to talk about, I am going to address the issue, and that is whether we should set up a select committee to investigate into Li Wei-ling's dismissal and whether CR has been interfered into by the administration, meaning that there is a clawback of freedom of speech. So it is very clear the subject is Li Wei-ling and CR. People have brought in Kevin Lau and his attack and also withdrawal advertisements, etc. All those may set the context for our worry about the threat to freedom of speech. But if the issue today is whether Hong Kong's freedom of speech is being clawed back, whether it is under threat, whether it is being interfered into by politics, well, that I agree. I think, yes, maybe we should look into those. But then, this is not what we are talking about today. If we want to inquire into Kam-lam Wai and the alleged behavior, we would not be bringing in that all men are like that Hong Kong is also going down in that direction, etc. All that may set the context, but then it has nothing to do with the issue at hand. So let me now focus on and zoom in on what we're talking about today. President, when we talk about invoking the PNP Ordinance, the basic principle is that it must be a public affair. And then also, there must be some wrongdoing committed by the government, and that warrants our concern. Sometimes, if I may resort to a legal issue, that is, the fact speaks for itself. Say, for example, the commissioning of the new airport, the short piling incident, Lehman Brothers saga, and SARS. These are all facts. And there must be the involvement of policy or implementation of policy or wrong decision-making on the part of officials. So we need not say more. We should look into those. And then there are case-specific incidents. And there must be a prima facie case. First, we are not the court. We are not here to conduct trials. We don't need to have the submission of affidavits or any other arguments. But then we are a place to discuss policies. And certainly, if we want to wear the hat of a semi-judicial organ, then we must also be very strict in defining the scope of the issue concerned. So at least we must have prima facie evidence of something, or else we do not have the locus to investigate into anything, and we should not spend the money to investigate into anything. Let us look at this particular incident. What kind of basic evidence do we have? If we look at the entire incident, now I was paying a lot of attention to what Ms. Li Wei-ling said, including the two press conferences she gave. She spoke once at City Forum, and also she co-hosted a D100 program with Mr. Albert Zhang. Supposing we accept her version 100%, that we do not doubt her credibility at all. And even so, she has talked about two things only. One, that C.Y. Leung, and someone close to him actually, whom Li Wei-ling has known for 10 years or above, told her that she should be careful for her job. And secondly, that some official told Li Wei-ling that C.Y. Leung hates her the most in all of Hong Kong. And number three, Stephen Chan, her boss. Now, it was said that the appeal case usually would not be decided so fast. But then Stephen Chan said that he was being pinpointed and the appeal was lodged right in that same afternoon. And that was strange. And so Stephen Chan was facing an appeal, and he wanted to mend his relations with the government. So all that was what Ms. Li Wei-ling said. She said it on her own accord. She was not being interrogated when she said those things. And then she said that she was unreservedly 100% sure that this incident was suppression of freedom of the press and of speech. So she was dismissed. Now, that was her 100% unreserved feeling. And of course, yesterday, this also happened in that KK Kwok and the CS4A actually gave different renditions of how they felt about a breakfast gathering. Li Wei-ling, if she went in silence, if she shedded some tears, then as a third party, I might feel that something happened. But what is most regrettable is that given the many opportunities that Li Wei-ling gave her account, she only said 100% how she felt. Even if we trusted her whole version, it would not amount to what I would say prima facie evidence so that we could press the button for an inquiry. On the contrary, Mr. President, let us look at objective facts. Again, basing on what Ms. Li Wei-ling said, and let us take it that she told the truth. What are these facts? Number one, she did not accept a warning issued by her supervisor as CR. And secondly, she did not attend the anniversary celebration of CR. And number three, when she was asked by a reporter how she viewed her supervisor, Stephen Chan, she said that he would only be destructive. And then a box of chocolate given to him by Mr. Stephen Chan was immediately given by Ms. Li Wei-ling to a cleaner. These are the facts that she herself detailed. Now, at this stage, I don't want to really judge which version led to her final dismissal, because very often there are many causes to one incident. As to the weight of the different factors, I believe that would be known to the people involved. Mr. President, should we decide to trigger our solemn mechanism just on the basis of our feelings? Now, somebody referred to Lo Chung-on, and I expected it to be mentioned. Therefore, I reviewed the case last night, and I spent a lot of time on it. Let us clarify some facts. This was a motion moved by Mr. Martin Lee on the 22nd of November in the year 2000. There was an internal investigation within Hong Kong U in August that year, and the results were widely accepted by everybody. And then that came the motion. It was not like what Mr. Albert Chan said, that the LegCo refused to investigate, so Hong Kong U took over the investigation. That was not the case. And then there were 4 accusations which are very dissimilar to this one. At that time, Dr. Robert Chung said in an article on the 7th of July 2000, he said that the CE's office gave an opinion on the POP, and he talked about names. He referred to the Pro-Chancellor, Cheng Yu-chung, and also the Vice Pro-Chancellor, Wang Xiulun. And then there was the public hearing conducted by Hong Kong U, and then there were 2 witnesses who we knew, Dr. Ching Kai-ming, Dr. Phyllis Lay-Mack, who were not questioned, and they gave evidence on oath that on the 11th of May 1999, there was a meeting with Professor Cheng Yu-chung, where the POP was mentioned, and C.H. Tong's envoy who commented on it. So there was the witness, there was evidence, and there were facts. And in fact, this did not only happen to Hong Kong U, but also CU Hong Kong. Dr. Wong Kah-ying and Dr. Lau Shiu-kai both said that Lo Chung-on contacted them. That is Andrew Lo. And then Professor Arthur Lee said that he would not like to be involved, and he said that you should talk to Wong Kah-ying yourself. And number 4, at the same time, the Asian Wall Street Journal reported that Fong Wing-chang, one of the board members or council members of Hong Kong U, was not reappointed because he helped Next Media to be listed. All that was very clear. We had names, the people, we had the incidents, we had the facts, and Judge Powell held the inquiry, and there was live telecast of that trial, and all witness statements were reviewed. And actually, the top QC in Hong Kong at that time was involved. So we had the evidence, we had the witnesses, and then, only then, that this council debated whether we should invoke PNP in order to investigate, and as to whether C.H. Tung, apart from Andrew Low, was also involved. That was the motion. It is said that we should also investigate into Arthur Lee, Mr. Feng Wing Chang's curtailment of the term of appointment, etc. That was the background. Compared to the case this time around, we are talking about press freedom, the other one academic freedom, and both claimed interference. But if you weigh the two incidents, you should know what we are talking about and whether we have the basic prima facie evidence in order to trigger the mechanism so that we can reasonably invoke that power. Mr. President, many members, well, actually, to a certain extent, I agree with them that the CE's credibility is questioned because during his election, he said something to Henry Tang, or he said something at a meeting and it was disclosed, and also he did not give an account of his unauthorized building works, so he has this original sin. And also he issued a law firm's letter to Joseph Lian in his capacity as the CE. Now, of course, if you understand some legal principles, you will not accept such arguments, but some members may not know this. So let me give you an example, even if it might not be the best example. Allow me to cite this example. If there is a member of the LegCo who is not exactly tall in stature and who is accused of indecently assaulting a woman, then should we say it must be Mr. Albert Ho because he was actually watching these scantily clad models while at a meeting in the chamber? So let us say it must be him, or should we then conduct an inquiry into the matter to establish whether it is Mr. Albert Ho? Sorry, Mr. Albert Ho, I was not targeting you, but I'm citing this as an example to show you the absence of logic in this argument. We should not just rely on our feelings to say that there is evidence, and so we should allow people to be investigated to show that they are actually innocent. And also, who are the people involved in this case? We don't know. Ms. Li Wei-ling says she has professional ethics, and so she would not reveal the person who told her to be careful for her job. So why should we compel her to reveal the name? Because she says she's not going to reveal it. And also, she did not say what exactly C.Y. Leung did. It was 100% her own feelings only. So in the circumstance, Mr. President, if we were to invoke the PNP ordinance, I would say that it would be a little far-fetched. And as to the clawing back of the freedom of speech, well, if I had had enough time, I would have been happy to share with you my thoughts. But all in all, the motion is not going to be a trial on whether Hong Kong's press freedom is under threat. Like members here and members of the public, I am also worried about a clawing back of press freedom. But let us be clear what we are talking about. We should not take up the semi-judicial role to investigate into Li Wei-ling and CR by invoking the PNP unless we have sufficient prima facie evidence, or else this council should not and does not have the responsibility to invoke that ordinance to tackle such an incident. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Chen Kam-lam. Mr. President, I believe that Hong Kong is still the place where we have the best freedom of expression and the best freedom of the press, even though recently some international ratings have given us a downgrading. But at the same time, we can see that in American and European countries which have claimed themselves to be the freest and most democratic societies, they have also seen a fall in their rating. In recent years, among the media organizations, we can see a fiercer, a keener competition. And the competition has been seen as unhealthy. This is obvious. And we can then understand why currently for some media organizations for a long time they've been relying on very radical views. They try to attack the government so as to get in return higher ratings and greater circulation rates. They don't mind if they have to buy news and get stories replicated. For such media ethics, I think they are undermining their foundations, and as a result, our freedom of expression and our freedom of the press have been much tarnished. Sometimes we see that for some newspapers and media organizations, they may take side when it comes to political views. It is but natural. In a free society, anybody may have his or her own political views, not to mention a newspaper. But other than being radical, politically speaking, even if when it comes to news story reporting, many victims have complained that they have been distorting the views or they're even fabricating the stories. I think this has been so in the entertainment business. From time to time, singers or artists have come forward to clarify certain stories, and they have condemned the media for resorting to outrageous means to fabricate the stories. So, in fact, the media in Hong Kong have already lost their principles of reporting in an unbiased fashion and being fair. And that's why recently, in relation to the credibility of our media organization, we have seen a drop in the rating. For the media in Hong Kong, I just wonder whether there should be some soul searching and some reflection. That is, they should think more about their own ethics. Perhaps they should rebuild our confidence in their ethical stance. Yes, we have to defend the freedom of the press. It is very important. In particular, for a free society, for a democratic society, freedom of expression, freedom of the press are indeed very important. This is because the media can make use of the powers that they wield to monitor the government as well as the legislature, so as to uphold social justice. I think this is their inherent duty. But then, when we talk about freedom of expression as well as freedom of the press, we cannot go beyond the boundary of our laws. In other words, we have to make sure that we know where the principle lies, where the line lies. The BBC in the UK, they say that accurate and unbiased reporting would be the core value of all news reporting. Powers and privileges, as well as responsibilities, go together. The press should uphold the ethical values, and they must not deviate from facts, and they must be impartial in their viewpoints. I think we all go after facts when we are being practical. This is also part of our core values. For Ms. LI Wei-ling, she was dismissed by commercial radio. I think a lot has been said. We have listened to the versions of both parties. I think it is a classic case of labor dispute. The employee disagrees with the employer, and I think this is something that can be resolved within the office setting. If it is found that there is some injustice or unfairness, then I think we can examine the labor contract, and we can also take it up in a court setting. In a society where there's the rule of law, I think we just look at the laws. If nobody has contravened the laws, then we really have to respect our respective freedoms and rights. And as Mrs. Regina Yip has said, you can hire, you can fire a staff member. This is a right on either side. Why is it that we are asking for an investigation when there is a dismissal by CR? Can the government intervene in the personnel matters, like the recruitment or dismissal of a staff member? For the LegCo to carry out an investigation, are we going to give people the impression that in fact we are intervening with the free running of the market forces as well as the freedom of expression? If we exert pressure on a commercial organization, would it go against the principles of market economy? Moreover, to defend press freedom, we have to make sure that the media organizations can run independently, especially their internal sort of affairs. Therefore, exactly for the sake of upholding press freedom, we should not resort to our powers and privileges to investigate into the termination of contract of Li Wei-ling by commercial radio. Whenever a commentator, a host or presenter is fired and then we have to look into the matter, then we will really genuinely be losing press freedom. In this story, there is a concept which I cannot bring myself to subscribe to. The opposition camp has been saying that Li Wei-ling has been criticizing the government on a long-term basis, so her dismissal has been instructed by the government so as to suppress freedom of expression and freedom of the press. I want to ask this question, whether the viewpoint is biased or not, and whether her approach is good or not. She, as long as she's criticizing the government, will then mean that she should never be dismissed. I don't think we should just look at whether she's critical of the government. We should look at the quality of the program. We will have to find out whether she's being unbiased. If a reporter is always criticizing the government, does it mean that we are giving her the iron rice bowl? Mr. Raymond Wong is a very experienced journalist. As she has said, she was a lecturer on journalism, and he has been so for 40 years. I think he is fully qualified to judge this case. I think you find an excellent clip on the YouTube concerning Ms. Li Wei-ling. But then if you want to play it here, I'm afraid it is inappropriate because there are a lot of abusive words. Ms. Li started to host on a clear day, and then the rating went down immediately. She's of a poor quality, and in fact she cannot she hasn't got the capability to command the morning slot. She's been criticizing her own boss for a long time and frequently, and that's why she was certainly and deservedly fired. So it appears that CR is justified in firing her. So it is just normal if a company finds that your subordinate cannot cooperate with you, and she's criticizing you all the time, then there's no ground to keep her. Recently, Ming Pao replaced its chief editor, and then Ms. Li Wei-ling was fired, and then Kevin Lau, the former chief editor, was attacked for no obvious reason. And then without any evidence, then the opposition camp would certainly point a blaming finger at the government, both the SAR government as well as the Central People's Government, saying that it is a matter of violation of the press freedom. They are inciting the people to take to the street. I think this is only causing disharmony in the society. I think this unjustified criticism means that our press freedom and our freedom of expression flourish a lot. But at the same time, it is also a clear evidence that freedom has been abused. They are just making wild guesses. I think reporters should not do this. Reporters must go after the truth. And if you start to escalate it to such a level, and if you try to politicize everything, then it means that you have ulterior motive. For Claudia Mo's motion to invoke powers and privileges to investigate the matter, I think this is already the 6th time to make a proposal of this nature. We have said that by resorting to such a tactic, the Democrats are trying to mislead us, and it is a matter of wasting public resources. This is a illustrative example. In this debate, the Pan-Democrats have always said that Li Wei-ling has accused Sau-lan being the black hand behind the dismissal. And therefore, we must clear it up, and we must ask Sau-lan to clarify himself. That's what the Pan-Democrats have said. Alan Leung started to count a series of accidents or incidents in the media industry. And then his conclusion was that we couldn't turn a blind eye to it, and therefore we must carry out an investigation. Hong Kong is a society where we have the rule of law. How come that we allow ourselves to degenerate into such a state? If we make any allegation, must we come up with evidence, in particular when it is in the political arena? I think we need to be very vigorous, and we cannot make accusations lightly. Otherwise, there will be a lot of political quarrels, and then the society will be wasting energy on unfounded and meaningless quarrels. Yesterday, Mr. Chen Kin-po told us his views concerning the dismissal of Li Wei-ling by CR. He also gave us some ideas about his dealing with Li Wei-ling. Mr. Chen's remarks attracted severe criticism from Albert Ho, saying that this is not the right forum to attack Li Wei-ling because she is absent. Attacking her in her absence would be unfair to her. Why is it that Mr. Albert Ho is so concerned about the fact that Ms. Li is absent, and therefore she should not be attacked or criticized? But then the other day, in her radio program, when Ms. Li Wei-ling talked about Mr. Chen Kin-po, can you not see that Chen Kin-po was not also present? Why are you adopting double standards? She can criticize anybody, anytime, anywhere, and yet the targets do not get a fair deal. Did Albert Ho ever consider their interests? Mr. Chen Kin-po was merely talking about his personal experience. He thinks that she's being unfair to him, and of course he is unhappy, and then Mr. Albert Ho criticized him for being emotional. But what about Ms. Li? Every day she criticized everybody, and she could fabricate everything, and she could air allegations without justification, without evidence at all. So Mr. Ho really saw sense of justice, when really saw credibility. When the FS was reading out his most important document annually, that is the budget, we saw attention. As a electoral member, if you think that looking at the girly photos is more important than reading the budget, then would you do the same? Would you be airing similar criticisms and say that a person is not qualified to be a legislator? Had you been at the other end, you are strict towards others, you are not strict about yourselves, so there is no credibility at all.
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. James To. Mr. President, I think I need to first of all declare interest. I've known Li Wei-ling for over 3 decades. But I want to say that I am also a friend of Stephen Chan. And then I have had news of Mr. Ho from the commercial radio a number of times. And we are drawing towards the end of the debate, and I want to respond to certain points made, especially the points made by Mr. Chen Kam-lam. Please do not regard commercial radio as just any one business organization. Please do not regard this dismissal incident as just an ordinary labor dispute. It's true that in a broadcasting body, there may be labor disputes, and those disputes may not have anything to do with the freedom of speech or freedom of the press. But then in this incident, Ms. Li Wei-ling told us commercial radio's assessment of her performance, and she also told the public Stephen Chan's assessment of her. And then Mr. Stephen Chan mentioned to Ms. Li Wei-ling his own court case, and also the upcoming license renewal exercise. And then Stephen Chan became very critical of Li Wei-ling getting a notebook to jot down all her so-called mistakes and so on and so forth. So Ms. Li Wei-ling gave her version of the incident. And if commercial radio really feels that her radio program is not popular, her style of hosting the program is unacceptable, and her program is attracting less and less advertisements, or if commercial radio feels that if Ms. Li Wei-ling continues to host her program in this manner, no one will want to appear on her program, and the broadcaster may even run the risk of violating the broadcasting ordinance, then if the commercial radio really has good justifications for firing Ms. Li, commercial radio should explain or give an explanation. And this is not about the separation of decent people, not involving vicious remarks. No, if Ms. Li has done anything wrong, if commercial radio has good grounds for firing Ms. Li, then commercial radio should tell the public the reasons. Or say if commercial radio feels that Li Wei-ling wastes a lot of toilet paper and water every time she goes to the toilet, then at least commercial radio should give some reasons, convincing reasons. The reasons that have been given by commercial radio fail to convince society that the incident is just an ordinary labor dispute which should be, say, dealt with by the labor tribunal. Oh, you can't simply say the separation of decent people should not involve vicious remarks, and that's all. I think Stephen Chan should have given the public an explanation. The commercial radio management should have given the public an explanation. My colleagues say that this incident is a labor dispute, and so as an cash in lieu of notice has been given, then someone can be fired at any time. Now, this may be true for ordinary business or ordinary businesses, but then commercial radio is the holder of a broadcasting license. So we really need to investigate the matter. Maybe a commercial radio has decided to fire Ms. Li Wei-ling because it is worried that its license may not be renewed. So maybe the matter had nothing to do at all with C.Y. Leung. But the nature of the incident is that it's not just a simple labor dispute. And so LegCo should investigate this matter. Some members have pointed out that this very powerful weapon must not be used indiscriminately. I agree. We shouldn't be invoking upon such power slightly. But then people are worried. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech are at stake. And this is not an isolated incident. In fact, this is one of a series of incidents which are worrying to the public. Some say that this incident has nothing to do with the freedom of the press. It has nothing to do with commercial radio's license renewal exercise. Some people say that there aren't any invisible hands behind the scene. So let's investigate the matter, find out the truth. Now, say after our investigation, we may discover that commercial radio has done this because it believes that its license will be renewed if Ms. Li is fired. Then we can clear the name of the government. And then the public may have some very strong views as to whether commercial radio should get its license renewed. But I want to say that there are genuine concerns and doubts in society concerning threats to the freedom of the press, and that's why LegCo must carry out this investigation.
Does any other member wish to speak? Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I'd also like to thank members for their views on the motion. At the beginning of this debate, I already said that the government opposes this motion because this incident is solely an internal personnel matters for the broadcaster. It is unnecessary and unreasonable for the government to interfere. For any untrue remarks in my opening introduction as well as on other occasions, I had already made clarifications.
I hope members will not blow up unfounded allegations because this will be extremely unfair to all parties. From members' speeches made yesterday and just now, I can feel that members' concerns over the personnel changes at commercial radio stem from the respect for freedom of the press and freedom of the media. Different people may have different views towards Ms. Li Wei-ling. Some may agree with her style of conducting the programs, but some may not agree with her style. So 10 individuals may have 10 different opinions towards Ms. Li Wei-ling. And I believe that the SAR government, together with everyone, has always respected our freedom of the press and freedom of speech. These are the core values of Hong Kong, which everyone embraces. Not only pan-democrats. Just like members here, I also cherish freedom of the press and freedom of expression. And Article 27 of the Basic Law provides that Hong Kong residents shall have the freedom of speech, of the press, and of publication. The government will not interfere with the editorial independence, independent operation, and internal management, not to mention suppressing the freedom of the press and of speech. To bolster Hong Kong's status as an international metropolis and for society to sustain its development, freedom of speech and freedom of the press are key elements. The SL government will continue to strive to protect these important core values. As I pointed out in my opening remarks, the commercial radio has yet to apply for the renewal of a sound broadcasting license, which will expire in 2016, and the relevant procedures for license renewal has not been kick-started. It is unjustified to link the personal decision of the commercial radio on this occasion to the processing of the sound broadcasting license renewal. I must also point out that in my opening remarks, the parties involved already related what she felt and what she heard, and the commercial radio has also given a response. Without any substantiated evidence, what more can we inquire into this whole incident? Mr. Sin Chung-kai yesterday also said that Ms. Li Wei-ling talked about some evidence, and he agreed that the evidence was not strong. And if we adopt such a low threshold for invoking the PNP, then wouldn't we be carrying out a lot of inquiries all the time? I think this will be futile, just like a wild goose chase. A wild goose chase is that wild goose run everywhere, and it's futile for you to chase any of them. In the end, you will waste your time and your energy. So let's imagine, as of today, Ms. Li Wei-ling has left the commercial radio for more than a month, and we still don't see any substantive evidence in pursuing the truth of the matter. So how and what more can we inquire into? How can we escalate? And why have we escalated the internal operation of a media organization to electrical? We face a lot of challenges, and very often I attend local and regional conferences related to the economy and trade, and I understand that other jurisdictions have invested much in developing their economy. So we should adopt a broader vision. We should focus on work that can bring actual benefits to Hong Kong. If this motion is passed and if electoral intervenes into this incident, this will set a very bad precedent, causing a serious interference with the internal operation of the media organization. It will also be a waste of our time and effort. Mr. President, the existing broadcasting system will not interfere with the editorial independence and independent operation of any licensed broadcasting organization. I hope members can also respect this effective and established mechanism. I oppose this motion.
I now invite Ms. Claudia Mo to reply. The debate will come to a close after Ms. Claudia Mo has replied. Whether we are sitting here and whether one sees this meeting through the television, I can see that the facial expression of the secretary is one that suggests that what can you do about me? What can you do about my attitude? It seems that we have degenerated into a state of shamelessness. The chairman did not approve my request to ask a question about Hong Kong TV licenses as a matter of urgency. All right, I'll give you one more week. I'll be putting the question to you in the IT panel. We are not targeting one individual in this case, but many members told us whether he or she liked or disliked Ms. Li. Since the commercial radio is a broadcaster using our public spectrum. And you think that you are being attacked, and then you can act like Mr. Albert Chan. You can lodge a complaint. You can complain to the former broadcasting authority and now the OFTA to seek justice. We speak here, we're covered by powers and privileges. You can speak whatever nonsense you want. No one can sue you. Is it fair? You are using your public position for private purposes. And I've just noticed that many DAB members with the surname Chen are very strange. They act in a very strange way that I have doubts. I don't recall the name. It's by the name. The surname is Chan, and I want to respond because he tried to drag Robert Chung into the issue. He criticized us as being sidetracking. Well, if you have the guts, you can accuse Robert Chung for creating false public opinion. And if you want to invoke PMP, I would certainly fight to the very end. I do not know Robert Chung well, but I know he is a gentleman, and an honest gentleman. And if you accuse him of wrongdoing, I will invite him to come over to prove his innocence, and I won't be acting like these government officials and hide behind excuses. There's no previous dealings between Ms. Lee and me. Some said he was very supportive of the Civic Party, but I only met him once, and that is over the incident involving the application for TV licenses. Ms. Li Wei-ling is an icon. You may not like her. Mr. Albert Chan doesn't like her. Mr. Raymond Wong doesn't like her. That's not what we are trying to address. We are talking about commercial broadcaster using our public airwave, and we are asking whether the broadcaster was using this for an ulterior agenda, ulterior motive. Did it succumb to government pressure over licensing renewal? We are not trying to interfere with its internal operation. And it's up to the radio station to exercise editorial independence. We are not asking for Ms. Lee to be rehired. We want to know whether behind the scene there was pressure brought to bear by the government. And because this time, very rarely, we have one media person who is willing to testify. Mr. Kevin Lau was brutally attacked, but no one would admit self-censorship. You are not going to expect anyone to come forward and admit self-censorship. And now we have a rare chance of having one witness. And back then, Robert Chung wrote 2 articles, one in Chinese, one in English. The Chinese one was sent to Hong Kong Economic Journal, the English one to South China Morning Post. Mr. Paul Jazz said Hong Kong Youth conducted its own investigation. But what about commercial radio? Is commercial radio independent? And then tell you whether they have done anything wrong? So whether there is going to be an independent investigation depends on us. You can always say that if there's no investigation on their part, we should let them do it first. And if they have done an investigation, then there's no need for us to do it. And you are saying that this is a labor dispute, and the right course of action is to go to the Labor Department. And some are saying that this is a waste of time and effort. We have many non-binding motions, and whatever you say that would be just be put on record. Are we wasting our time? We talk about a lot of things. Tissue paper, fleas and ticks. Well, we are spending public money just to maintain the operation of this chamber. If you say that we are acting out of speculation or conjectures, it seems that we suddenly dreamt about this. Ms. Lee was wrong, and we therefore want to vindicate her, as if no one has ever spoken. Ms. Lee did not speak. And then we crop up with this name and Li Wei-ling, and we want to investigate. So the answer is no. What is self-censorship? My colleague in the office showed me the instant news of RTHK. I moved my motion. I spoke for 15 minutes. There was a line to report what I said. But for Mr. Sau's speech, there were 3 paragraphs. As a veteran of 3 decades in the media industry, working in the media industry, my guess is that RTHK censors itself. What kind of evidence? How do you prove? Well, it's a question of whether you believe me or not. I have this feeling based on facts, based on the reports. And I base my judgment on my 30 years of experience. I tell you that's what I think happened. It's not something out of the blue, and I just pluck it out of the air. Why is it that the elected member's speech is only reported in 1 line, and then 3 paragraphs for the official? Is this balanced reporting? So we are in such a council. We're faced with such a media organization. We can certainly doubt their action because it's a publicly funded organization. So what is wasting our time, our efforts, electrical time? Well, you are wasting our time and our money, and you are paid. President, Mr. Chris Patten is going to visit Hong Kong again, and many people refer to him as a fat path. I have only got this English passage.
That this community's autonomy would be usurped by Peking, but that it could be given away bit by bit by some people of Hong Kong. Unquote. 同續牌事。
Oh, so it's got nothing to do with license renewal of commercial radio. It's not going to happen soon. Well, but people have to get prepared. Now the TVB and ATV are having their renewal process handled. Would that explain why you have dealt with Mr. Ricky Wong's case like this, and that's why he was suppressed? Well, shame on this government.
我現在向各位提出嘅待決。
I now put a question to you, and that is that the motion moved by Ms. Claudia Mo be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Ms. Claudia Mo claims a division. The division bell will be rung for 5 minutes. Voting begins. Please verify your votes. If there's no question, voting is closed and the results displayed. FC members, 31 present, 8 for, 23 against, no abstention. GC members, 33 present, 17 for, 15 against, no abstention. The question is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members. I declare the motion negative.
The 5th to the 7th members' motion